Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. As always, your host, Dan Reeves. I am in 12-step recovery, long-term recovery. I've actually reset my sobriety date just not too dang long ago, but this stuff stacks up, and as my sponsor tells me, actually relapse is the number one symptom that you got a problem. If you're relapsing, you know that that's a problem. Normal people don't do that. But with the help of some really strong people, I got right back on the horse and didn't get hurt too bad. And I'm back in the game. That's what we do. A measure of a man or a person, a human. It's not when they fall; it's how they get back up. And that's what counts. And I feel as good. I got my mojo back. I feel as good as I've felt in a long time. If you're just bumping across this, we are primarily 12-step recovery, but we do have a lot of guests that bring different angles on this concept that the Big Book talks about enlarging your spiritual life, continuing to grow spiritually. And when I say that, I mean this actual spirit that resides inside of us. Most of the time in the Western society, when you hear the word spiritual, and that whole thing gets you think religion, and that old wore out statement is, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And that makes some sense. It does. I get it, but it gets said so often. But it holds water. So my guest today is Casey Berman. He's going to bring some stuff. What I understand, we were just talking about workplace issues and people hating their jobs, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I thought I was stuck. I told my sponsor when I got here, I said, I don't have a degree, and I'm working in an engineering firm getting engineering pay. I am stuck here. And he said, no, the universe don't work like that, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you set your mind to something and open your heart and watch what comes along. We say, look what we'll see what higher power has in store for you. And he was right. Things changed for me, and I couldn't be happier today.
That's great.
So I know that's what Casey's bringing to the table. Probably helped a lot of people see that same outlook. Tell me a little about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and just great work that you're doing, and the energy and inspiration and the storytelling that you're bringing. Storytelling is how people learn, and it's what's that, show don't tell, right? So you're doing that all the time, and and helping so many people. So, and thank you for having me. Honored to be here. My name is Casey Berman, and I'm a California kid, born and raised San Francisco. Past few years, family and I moved to Maui, so I'm in the middle of the Pacific. Just a little warmer weather, slower pace, but I'm a California kid at heart, and my family's all still there. I thought where I could help, and just what I'd want to talk about, and I can tell you more about my personal life. I don't want to bore you with it, but I'm happy to. But what I do, and my passion is a company called Leave Law Behind. I'm a former attorney. I just went to law school just because that's what I was supposed to do. And not surprisingly, I practiced law for 5 years, had a great job, in-house counsel at a software company in San Francisco, all that .com stuff way back in the day. But and it was great. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate it. I learned a lot, but it was very reactive. And so I left to the dismay of everyone around me. But for me, it just wasn't fit me. And started writing back. I'm 51, so I'm way old. But that writing in '09, just kind of blogging about my journey leaving the law, and the blog got picked up. Google liked it. Got into some newspapers, and anyway, those little passion projects become a business. And so really we help unhappy attorneys to career transition out into sales, business development, operations, helped hundreds of them. And they find a job that they were stuck being a lawyer, and now they're doing a job they enjoy, that they're good at, and that pays well. And now I just started CaseyBerman.com, and it's a site where I'm taking the stuff that I've really taught at Leave Law Behind and bringing it beyond the lawyers and bringing it to everyone, just to help people understand they're not stuck. They can get kind of touchy-feely and woo-woo, but in a real practical way to work here. And so that's what I'm all about. And I can tell you more about that, or some of the tenets, or happy to talk about how I grew up and all that, whatever works best. But that's really what I'm focused on.
Yeah, usually one thing that I like, in my world, people usually have something that happens to them that causes them to change this trajectory. They usually have some event. Was there something in your life that happened, or was it just a casual, I'm just not liking this anymore, I'm going to do something different?
To leave the law, to leave being a lawyer?
Yeah, make that transition.
Great question.
Usually things bump you, we don't just, some people do that. Some people just go, you know what? I think I'm going to change some things today. But most of us have to have a little catalyst behind it. And usually that catalyst probably is not terribly comfortable. Sometimes it can be very painful. That ends up
Yeah.
making you go a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's a great question. And there were some catalysts. And so, as a little background, born and raised San Francisco, California, and had a great life, great parents are still there. I visit them and very close. My dad was very entrepreneurial. He ran his own business, still does. And so I saw that growing up. But I was good student, high school, college, and just kind of people pleaser and played baseball and had fun and just had a great life, but kind of did what I told, right? Like you go, even if I didn't like a subject, I kind of honed up on it just because I didn't want the teacher to yell at me and want to get my grades, all doing that. And I'm still a law abiding citizen, don't get me wrong, but I did not like law school and I just went to go and, 22 years old. And I just, I got my, what handed to me. And
Did
it was
somebody push you that way?
no, I just
Or
went, I was just being a good
that's
kid
just what
and
you just did, huh? Because as a lawyer, trying to be thinking, hey, I'm gonna be a lawyer, I'm gonna be a doctor, that kind of stuff is taking is signing up for a tough path.
yeah, it's a tough, but and that's the thing. And ironically, I didn't, and I wasn't the only one. There are so many people, as I found out later, so many people across religions, races, geographies, you name it, who all would say to me after I started to leave law behind, I just went to law school. I didn't even think about it. My dad was a lawyer. My mom wanted me to go. I wanted stability, security, or, back in the 80s, LA law with all the flashy suits and all that, or the OJ lawyers or whatever. And you don't think about it, but, being a lawyer is it's kind of like a glorified paper pusher. Now, let me clarify something. The world needs good lawyers. And if you're a lawyer and you enjoy what you do, by all means, keep doing it. The world needs you. So I am not knocking the industry or anything. But for the people like me, and there are many of us out there who were unhappy doing law and got stuck in it. No. The world needs you doing something else. Okay. So I just want to clarify that. And so I just went, and that's what's crazy about it. And before you know, you're sitting around saying, what am I doing? It's 3 years. Back then, I went to law school in San Francisco. It wasn't a ton of money like it is now, but it was still expensive. And you got to take student loans or you got to get your parents to pay for it or whatever. It's 3 years of your life. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's this huge investment that a lot of us didn't even think about. There's a quick story. I was in tax class. It was my second year, I think. And I'm in tax class and there's these problem sets and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm in the cafe in the morning early and I see this guy from our class and I'm 23 and he's the old 31-year-old. He's got a beard, he's like 31. I was like, well, that guy's old. So I said, can you help me with this? And he said, sure. And he essentially did the work for me so I wouldn't get yelled at by the teacher. I said, how do you know how to do this so quickly? How do you know tax so well? He said, Casey, I better know tax. I was a CPA for 7 years before law school. That's when it hit me. I said, oh, I am in over my head. What am I doing here? Right. But I go through, I finish. But it just wasn't for, I failed the bar the first time. I passed it the second time. That was an indication like, Casey, I don't know if this is really for you, but I went into software in San Francisco and I didn't go the traditional firm route. I knew that wasn't for me. And I went in-house, had a great job in-house, great company. It was a lot of fun. But what happened is I was just getting hammered every day and I was turning anxious. I was drinking a lot of coffee. I was drinking more alcohol. I don't have an addiction and I would kind of just drink socially for fun, but I found myself Tuesdays having a drink or, hey, can we go here more? I was working out, that was great, but I just felt like my workout was not enjoying exercise, but I got to get this stress out of me. Right. And so here I am, 26.
Alcohol turns down the volume,
That's right. That's right. And so I was trying uppers, downer. I mean, I was trying it all, not in like in sort of a death defying way, but just little things that are like, wow, you're drinking a lot of coffee, Casey. Wow, you're going out and get drinks on a Monday. You never do that, right? Like little things were coming up. And then I was walking home from the office in San Francisco and I got an email in the middle of the night from someone across the world. We had an office in England and all this sort of stuff. And here I am asking me to do something and it's 8 p.m. my time. First of all, I'm leaving the office at 8 p.m. And then I got this email and I just said, wait a minute, like it hit me. I'm always on. And this isn't frontline. I'm not in the Army. I'm not a EMT. I'm not a policeman. I mean, those are frontline. There's a lot of stress there. Mine wasn't at that level, without a doubt. I have a ton of respect for those folks. It was a tick or two below though, because when you're just consciously on, even if you're just typing with your fingers and not helping in an ambulance, but still, it's got that same
Sure.
effect on your
Yeah,
body.
it sure does.
So the one thing that hit, and the one big catalyst, which I'm leading up to, is I would always negotiate the licensing agreements at the end. That's, we license software, and so end of the month, all the salespeople are trying to get their deals in so they can get their commission paid. Well, New Year's Eve is the end of the month. It's the end of the quarter, right? And every salesperson, like, and not that I needed to go out New Year's Eve. He doesn't get to go out for New Year's Eve, but still, it was New Year's Eve, right? And I'm literally working till 9 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And that wasn't even the big thing. The big thing was I closed a deal for a salesperson. He made what, six figures on it. I mean, it was a huge deal. He made over $100,000 on this one deal. I didn't. I had a nice salary, but I didn't make money like that. And the gift that he gave me back in the day was an iPod. It was an old iPod. I still have it. And he engraved on the back, "Thank you." Now, that was very nice of him, and I really appreciate it. But I looked at my $300 iPod, and this guy's making, 1,000 times or whatever times that. And I said, whoa, I'm in the wrong place. I'm getting burnt out. I'm getting stressed out, and I'm not making nearly as much money. And I'm working harder or as hard as they are. So I'll pause there. But those are some of the catalysts: the burnout, the change in my lifestyle, and also the fact that all these people were making much more money in different ways, that just said, I got to get out of here. I was getting married soon, and I said, I gotta try something
Ask
new.
you, were you single or were you in a relationship? Were you married? You sounds like you were engaged, maybe.
We were dating and then engaged, and then I left the law and got married. Everyone thought I was crazy. I got married 6 months later and 8 months later, and my wife was cool with it, and we have that great connection. But yeah, I was single and engaged at that time, making that decision. I was like, I'm going to leave. And then it took me another 11 months to do it. Right. I had to kind of think it through, but those are some of the catalysts that really caused me to change.
Yeah, we talk a lot, and we have a whole podcast. I do this podcast. I started this one 7 years ago. My sponsor and I do another one, and it's like iPad, but it's IM12. It's a little I and an M12.
I love
And
it.
we're just offering the 12-step tools to anybody that wants them, not just alcoholics and addicts. Just generic them up and saying, these tools will work for anybody. And getting them out there. There's 100 fellowships that use the 12 steps or more for various things: gambling, overeating, cocaine, every substance in the world. And there's probably a Lawyers Anonymous someplace. And and so anyway, we did a whole show on finding your passion, like to find what you like to do. And that sounds like that's harder than it sounds, right? And you can go up to people and talk to them and say, what, and even, he likes to ask people, if you could wave a magic wand and turn back the tapes, what would you have wanted to be? What would you have wanted to do? And people struggle answering that question. Some people do. Some people know what they wanted. I wanted to be I wanted to be a fighter pilot, when I was little. But there's no way that was happening with my trajectory that I took, starting to use drugs and alcohol in high school. That was not going to happen. So you start settling, but my point here is that I think most of us do have something, that we can find, that we can make a living doing, and actually enjoy at the same time. That's the trick. Find something that makes you a living and you like to do it.
And you hit the nail on the head. And here's how I frame it to make that easier. So it's hard to answer the question, what's your passion, or what do you want to do? Someone back in the day in 2004, when I left, they would say, what is your passion? The right answer is for me to say, I'm passionate about my family, my wife, my kids. And, if they're watching, I am passionate about you. I love you guys. But what I'm passionate about: San Francisco sports teams, the Niners, Giants, Warriors, the Sharks. I like to run. I like my dog. But what am I really passionate about? It's hard for me to answer, right?
Yeah.
So, and what do I want to do? Well, first of all, we don't know all the jobs out there in the world. There's a lot of different jobs, but a job, what you're doing is really just a container. It's just a thing, right? And I'm going to talk more about it, but it's kind of a space. You don't start with that. Where I think people should start, on what's easier, is what are you good at? What are
Mm.
your skills and strengths? And this is what we call your unique genius. It's easier to answer that. Now, some people will say it's hard, but what you do is you just do some automatic writing, or you actually go out. I've got some questions, which I'm happy to share, which you ask colleagues or friends or family. And listen, if someone thinks you're doing woo woo and they don't want to answer it, then don't ask them, right? But the people who are open to it, 3, 4, 5 people, and you have them, you ask a few questions and you get all your traits. It's like, for sports fans out there, it's like a scouting report, right?
Mm.
And you get those traits. And then you look at it and you go, yeah. And these could be soft or hard skills, right? I mean, these could be like engage in a conversation, asking questions, listening, being the adult in the room, being detail oriented, putting out fires, getting things across the finish line. I mean, like, you name it, right? So then when you get all of these traits out there and you're feeling good about it, what you then do is you then find the jobs, these things to do. You find which jobs are calling for that. So if you're good at herding cats and getting things across the finish line, project management. If you're really good at thinking big and visionary and geeking out on new technologies, strategy consultant. If you're great at schmoozing and talking and storytelling, maybe business development or sales, right? Or content creation. Start and so this is what I want to tell everyone: start with what you're good at, because ironically, we're doing the 180. We're starting with what we think we should be, what will make my mom proud, what makes the most money, what is the course thing I should do, what's the hottest job right now, what did my family do. Really, we should flip it and just say, what am I good at? And then match the jobs to that, because there are job descriptions out there calling for your skills and strengths. So that's
Hmm.
how I look at it. Because otherwise, if you're just going to follow what should I do or what am I passionate about,
I like it.
it's hard to answer those questions.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was asking, because it is.
Yeah,
As I'm talking to people, uh, my toolbox can't be full enough. My
yeah.
passion is helping people.
Hmm.
That's really what I love to do. I love to take people through these steps and watch them get up out of the gutter and move on with a life that's worth living, and being of service to others and stuff.
But
So
Dan,
the
in
toolbox,
that process to kind of analyze you help people, but you guide them, you push them along, you put out fires, you project manage. I mean, there's a lot that goes into
yeah,
helping
there is.
people. There's a lot of skills and strengths that you have, you may not even realize, but that you have, that's kind of encapsulated in what you just said.
Yeah, yeah. And you can tell, because it lights me up when I'm doing it, when I
Exactly.
get, we say juiced up.
Exactly.
I get juiced up. I get high doing it today.
That's
It's like,
right.
this podcast that does that with me is coming to get that stuff. So those are, uh, the flip side of that, and you kind of alluded to it, we talk about a lot about like programming, and that's what like mom and dad wanted me to do that they've taught
That's
me
right.
since I was a little kid, that these boxes are what we're going to check, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
Right.
And you're going to be a this when you grow up kind of thing. We really want you to. And I watch that happen in my circles and stuff of men raising children and trying to drive their kids to what they want them to do,
Yeah.
a little bit overbearing in the sports arenas, and where it's like, doesn't look like the kid's actually enjoying this playing sports, and I think he's doing it for dad because dad really likes it, and the various other things. And that programming is tough to jump the rails,
It is.
because you get on that rail. And it's like being, you're like a train, man. You're just gonna, you can't turn away from it.
It becomes a belief, and it's conscious, it's subconscious. It just becomes that belief, and that's just what you do. And some of them are good. I mean, there's obviously a ton of great
Yeah,
beliefs that your parents, society,
yeah.
your
It's not,
community,
nobody's trying to hurt anybody.
it's great.
Yeah,
Some are not so good. And one of them for me was just that belief of you go to law school, you just take the safe route. And, something clicked in for me in my 20s of just, I got this entrepreneurial bug. I kind of wish I didn't have that entrepreneurial bug. I would have been a great company man and just gone up the corporate ladder, right? But I had it, and I just couldn't deny it. So, and that was a belief I had to go against, which was get the safe job, go the corporate ladder. I mean, this is Silicon Valley 2000s, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's all the
Sky's the limit.
companies are there. Like, it's sky's the limit, right? And I was like, well, I'm just not vibing it. So, but yeah, there's a lot of beliefs, and that's part of the process also, is to shine a light on those beliefs that you have, as hard as they are. So,
Yeah. I got sober in 2015, and I had worked for this place for 24 years since I was 20 years old. And And like when I got sober, I quit liking to hear the circus music that was playing in the corporate environment. There was hoops to jump that seemed silly to me that all of a sudden it's like, that don't that don't fit here, you know.
Yeah.
And in my heart, that does not seem like something. And there was a lot of goofy stuff. And I actually was on home incarceration for almost a year for 9 months. And I
Yeah.
was always getting asked to be on the special teams and all this kind of stuff. And that really worked for me when I was young, you know, because it was a big pat on the back, you know.
Right.
I didn't really think about the fact that, oh, I get to work more for the same pay. And, I was not
Yeah.
getting commissions or anything, any extra for working harder. But and there was that camouflage workaholism thing that
Yeah.
when I could do that, I could point at me and say, "See, I don't have this problem that you might be thinking I got because look at how good I'm excelling
Yeah.
over here, right?" And I do see that a lot too. And then in 2000, and I'd lost when I had that home incarceration thing, I learned that I could say no because I
Yeah.
couldn't. They never knew I got in trouble. My
Yeah.
employer didn't. And when they would ask me to be on these special teams and to work over and stuff, I would have to call the correction center to get that approved. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I started out saying, I can't. And they's like,
Yeah.
okay. And I was like, hold
All
on, you
right.
mean I can say that? You mean I can say no? Hold on. And it started a little bit of a thing. And I think it started a little bit of kind of a virus around because other people saw that they could say no too.
It's a
And
power saying no.
and
It's a
then
power.
and they had a little reduction in force, and I was getting 26 years of 5-star reviews and glowing
Yeah.
stuff. And in 2019, they turned me loose. I was
Yeah.
a drug addict and alcoholic for 24 years. I was sober for 4. And they said, hit the road. My
Right.
heart wasn't in it at the moment. I had no idea what I was going to do. And they gave me a
Right.
good severance package. I didn't have any idea, though. And today I look at it as like the universe, higher power, what you want, whatever you want to think about. That security post was too solid for me to let go of on my
Yeah.
own. I could not
Yeah.
turn away that medical insurance and the 401k and all that kind of stuff. But the universe said, fix that for you. You're unplugged.
That's right.
And then this, organically, I've got these skills. I can fix almost anything. I mean,
Yeah.
like your dishwasher, your range. Actually, I don't like to work on cars, and I generally don't, but I can. But
Yeah.
like around the house, the stuff that needs to be fixed at everybody's house, that the drawers in the kitchen ain't working, operating right, or the cabinet door, or the bathroom door won't latch, and bedroom doors don't latch, and
Yeah.
doors shut. Just all the stuff that happens in houses, I can fix all that stuff, and
Yeah.
I just learned it from my father. I took all those skills for granted.
Right.
And some people knew that about me. And you were talking about friends. Ask your
Yeah.
friends. I had some friends that were realtors, and they're trying to sell houses, and there's something wrong with them. And they knew I wasn't working, and they said, "Hey, could you come fix this for me?" And it turned into a whole business. And for the
100%.
past 6 years, at one point I was like, "Man, I'm gonna start paying taxes on this." At first I was just kind of free flowing it, but it just happened to me. It was very organic. I got a
Yeah.
little wood shop I got a little wood shop in my backyard, so I do custom woodwork too. And in the handyman world will bring me that work. But and I know it's a little bit different. Making that decision to let go of the pole and move into something else, especially if you've got a family you're trying to support,
Yeah.
kids and a wife and that kind of stuff. I'm making that transition and say, okay, I'm going to do something different.
Well, so fantastic story we just talked about, what you just mentioned. And, I've got no handyman skills, so I'm jealous of you.
But you got skills I don't have. So
yeah. And so in that note, my skills, I'm always thinking of stories. I'm always thinking of deals. I'm always thinking of business. Like I'll walk into a room or I'll meet people, and some of my skills are, oh, well, there's a business there. People look at me like, are you kidding me? I just was telling you a story about them. I'm like, well, you can monetize this and create this. And they look at me like, where did that come from? Right. But I can't fix a lock to save my life. But what's interesting about what you did there, I think I'm going to project on it. You let me know if I got it wrong, but is the surrender that you did, the letting go that you did. And I know you didn't do it. You probably fought it because all we humans do, but
actually, 12-step recovery gave me that to go, you know what? Something is coming. Just
something's
sit
coming
back, man. And I was getting paid enough that I didn't have to worry about it. And that gap never happened that I was scared of it.
Right.
I didn't get scared of it, but you can't help but project it. At some point this income's going to end. And if I don't have something in place, but that never happened. But you're right. The surrender was part of it. It was just letting it go.
It's it. And, another way to think of that surrender is really when you think about free will, and I'm not going to get religious here at all. I'm not a very institutional religion person.
Free will.
But when we talk about free will, we do have free will. But where I think we really have free will is we get to choose. This is really where I think we only have free will in this matrix simulation, rock, earth, however you think about this world, is around our perspective, is around how we view it. And I'm not, people have been saying this for years, right? But it bears that repeating because it's so easy to fall into the trap of taking a perspective that is misaligned, is stuck, is someone's out to get me. I mean, look at the headlines, right? I mean, you just read a few headlines, regardless of where you are on life or political spectrum. I mean, we know the perspective they're painting, right? And that gives us all such heartburn. But I really think free will is on a perspective, is around the choice we make of how we're going to view this. And I talk to my kids about this all the time, and they roll their eyes at me. But you could have viewed that layoff that you went through, or whatever it was, that restructuring, as horrible. You probably did some as rejection, as whatever. Instead, you looked at it as, all right, I got a little money to hold me off here. This isn't the worst. And really, I'm going to be comfortable with the unknown. I don't know where this is taking me. I don't know what's going on. That was your perspective, which was just, I'm just going to ride the wave. I'm going to go with the flow. And look what happened.
Great girlfriend at the time, so I got to spend more time with her. You know, and I had in 2000, right? Actually, the weekend that I got laid off, that was my yoga teacher training test weekend. I'm a registered yoga teacher, so I'm going to yoga every day, and kicking back and doing fun stuff. And I really did. I just let it go and said.
Now, even if someone's in a situation where they get laid off and they don't have the yoga training, they don't have the money for the bridge, like even if they're in not a very good spot, you still have that free will of perspective. Now, maybe you better make some money quickly to close that gap, right? And you better find a way to get your kid such and such care or whatever it is you need to do. But we still have that free will of perspective. Something not so good happened to my, just kid stuff, teenage kid stuff. But I said, if you believe do you believe the universe has your back? My daughter looked at me like, yeah, I do. And I said, well, then if this is a good thing, this could lead to something good, right? Yeah, I guess you're right. Now, we all want to complain because we want to be right, not happy, right? But when you, at least even if you don't change your perspective, but at the very least, if you just observe that you're making a choice about I do this all the time. I am pissed off and I'm angry and I'm making a choice to be angry, even though I know I shouldn't, right? But if I'm just taking a step back and observing that I am making a choice to be an idiot, that's a good step, just to observe myself, right? Now, hopefully you're not just observing, you can kind of go in and shift your perspective, but we take baby steps. But that's another thing where I really think is the free will is to make that choice of how do you view something.
Yeah. And you'd said you're not bringing anything new. Well, who said that? There's nothing new under the sun. But isn't it interesting that each one of us has to learn that over again from scratch? We can't, like your kids can. You have so much knowledge to give them, and you're trying, and it's soaking in. We know that it is. Someday they'll go, oh yeah, Dad was right when he, and he was right about this, and he's right about that, just like I do today. Grandma said time was going to speed up and every day is going to get faster, man. You're like, what does that mean? That's crazy. Still 20. Right. And now it's like bling, 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 bling. Yeah. So, but it's interesting that we have to learn these lessons just over and over and over and over again. And a lot of these principles are like, even though as different as times are now than they were 2,000-3,000 years ago, they're still like this basic fundamental stuff that you got to do if you want to have a good time on this planet, that perception, and in recovery, there's a guy that wrote a book and he called it A New Pair of Glasses. Yeah. Same thing, I'm going to see things differently.
Yeah. No, 100%. And so I'm going to butcher this, but I saw someone that said, inspiration, you don't just get inspired on a Tuesday and you're inspired for the rest of your life. This woman was saying it's like showering. I mean, we shower every day. You need to be inspired every day. You forget. You fall asleep. You go to bed. You kind of forget. I mean, it's just like showering. But what I learned is that if you go back to the agricultural revolution was about 10,000 years ago, right? If you think of the Bible, you got Abraham was about 1,800 years before the Common Era, before Christ. So that's 4,000 years ago, roughly. 10,000, 12,000 years ago, they started the agricultural revolution. I think humans 70,000 years, something like that. But there was a point where we had consciousness and the identity of the other. So there were our ancestors back there, and like, I'm Casey, that's Dan. And all of a sudden, you mentioned soul earlier, we're in these containers, these bodies, and we're looking out, and all of a sudden, there's someone different. Mm-hmm. And that's when anxiety, I think, started. Right? Like, that's when all the mental health came in, because there's a lot of single-celled or even other animals. Like a gazelle gets chased by a lion in the Masai Mara in Kenya. If it made a mistake or it didn't hear the lion and it gets by, like, with just saves itself because of something happens, it doesn't sit there and mope and say, man, that was close, I should have been quicker.
Yeah. Nor does it do a victory lap and say,
nor does it do a victory lap, right? Like, it takes a breath and reduces its cortisol, whatever, and starts eating and moves on with its life, right? For the most part. And so, but
and they're not looking at the other one and going, wow, man, Joe almost got 8 right there.
Or Joe didn't get 8. I want to be more like Joe the gazelle, because he wouldn't have gotten chased. Right? We sit there and beat ourselves. Thing. That's right. So, but it goes back. So people have been dealing with this since 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, and even 70,000 years ago. Some of our ancestors, some Homo sapien, has been anxious and comparing themselves just like we're doing right now. So part of that sucks, because we still don't have an answer for it, but it does give some comfort to say we're not alone. This is something that really has been an issue with having consciousness, which there's a lot of good to consciousness. Think about poems and songs and everything we can create, but this is also the other element of just being aware and conscious. So just made me think of that.
I like to listen to there's a lot of these evolutionary biologists, I think they call themselves on, and they talk about how these little things have evolved to protect us and have evolved to suit us, or and the reasons why we have anxiety and why these chemicals jump out in ourselves to keep ourselves alive and all that. But and some of those old things are probably working at cross purposes with us today, because you're not really that concerned about getting eaten by a lion today. That's not on your plate. Yeah, it still happens, but that's not a big deal. But we still have these inner things that pop off because of other kind of anxieties and other stimuluses that kind of create those same flushes of those hormones and stuff. And
that's right.
And we don't know what to do with them, and there's tools to do it. And it's another thing, I guess when you're young, you just are not capable. There's a maturity thing where you just can't, like whenever you told it, I had 2 DUIs by the time I was 19. You could not have told me I had a problem. Now the courts thought I did, and they were sending me to AA meetings and alcohol classes and that kind of stuff, but they don't know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
But then later on, and someplace in the middle 30s, usually, if you're going to draw a line, it runs a gamut. Of course, there's edge cases everywhere, but where people begin to like go, oh man, what I've been doing for that many years, no matter if it's drinking or doping or working or whatever, it seems like it's someplace in that 30s to 40 neighborhood that you go, this ain't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
That old thing of what worked for, who was that said that? Thoreau or Emerson or one of them people said something. What worked for me in the morning of life don't work for me in the afternoon of life. I cannot remember who done that. I'm a quote dude, but I'm losing it at the moment. And it's an interesting thing that how we evolve like that we we think we like something, and then over a period of time it's not working for us anymore, and it's tough to make the change.
Well, and again, I'm not an expert on alcohol addiction, and so course correct me or push back if I got this wrong. But one thing that I've seen is with addictions in general is that addiction is you're drinking or you're doing something really to fill a perceived lack. Like there's a gap. I don't have peace. This is going to bring me peace or bring me closer to peace, right? And it becomes a substitute for peace. Some people say God, some people say whatever. But there's this gap, and we all, whether it's original sin, we all think there's a gap, and that we're wrong and separated. And part of the what I like to tell people is that, you're not. Like, what is this belief, to your point earlier about beliefs, that you're wrong? There's this thing of sin, guilt, fear, past, present, future. I've sinned in the past. I'm going to feel guilty about it today. And boy, am I going to be afraid of the future because of how bad I am, right? Sin, guilt, fear. And so I think with addiction, it's this feeling, this lack, this gap we think you have. And then I think you're right, at some age, 30, 40, wherever, you see that it's not filling the gap for you. You see it's not doing it. And you get old enough, and then you want to find that peace, that joy in a different way. And so I think you get to a point where you get to that maturing, and you see that this is coming from within. It's coming from perception. It's coming from surrender, like this 12 step talks about. So that's something maybe you just got to get to a certain point in life where you say, it's not bringing me the peace I thought it would. It's not filling that gap.
Yep. And and those things come in all kinds of forms, man. The new car, if I
Yeah,
just would get me that
that's right.
sports car, if I would just, or her, I get
New
her.
girl, new
Or the
guy,
same thing
new
with the thing
job.
about raising these kids. If I can form up these kids to be what and
That's right.
we all of us are latching on to something. And one of the oldest stories ever is that it ain't outside; it's inside.
It's inside.
It's an inside job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
There's all these, what they call these idols, right? IDOLS, right? Like these statues, these idols we have, whether it's work or a new car or a flashy suit or whatever, that it's,
the title.
yeah, the title, the job, the salary, all of that. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. In this world, you need money. You need this thing called money to help you do things. And it does help when you've got money, when you have a relationship, when you've got that, it does help you. It makes it easier. But if you put all your time and effort into it, and you realize that what you realize, one, is it's not going to fill the gap. I think the bigger thing for me is there is no gap. We're all happy. We're all fine. We're all good,
You're all enough.
and yeah, that's it. So,
Yep. Some of us, I see people just bust their entire lives trying to be in just fabulous shape and have the body,
yeah,
and is there anything wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's that little invisible line, is what we say, of where like it crosses over some healthy thing at times. And next thing you're neglecting your family because you're at the gym all the time,
yeah,
or you're hurting yourself because you're overdoing it. And you get old, and then your body ain't gonna do what it did when it was 20, and
yeah.
it just varies everything. Not to mention, this technology is a wonderful freaking thing. It is. It's great. To me and you get to talk like this from Hawaii to Louisville, and I've
Exactly.
people from New Zealand, from Austria, from Australia, and have them on my podcast and everything. But the flip side of it is, man, there's a lot of danger in this thing, man,
There is.
especially for kids.
Yes.
Once your brain's kind of evolved, I'm fortunate that I was mature at the time that I come into these things,
Yeah.
and you too. But man, I've got a 19-year-old girl and a 21-year-old son, and they're frankly technologically damaged. They've
No, I
been,
got 18 and 15.
and I
Same,
wish
same
I'd have
boat.
done stuff different,
Yeah.
but golly, it was so hard not to back in. I'm gonna, to get them to be okay in the back seat. The first time I handed this back in the back seat today, I visualized that I handed them a crack pipe,
I
you
know.
know? It's like, golly, because, and then,
Well,
what it really gets me is like my daughter, I never see her without it, but when dad texts her, it's like, I might get an answer tomorrow. Hold on a minute. I know that.
oh, so you're not the only one. My kids never reply to me.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
It's
But
crazy.
there's just so much stimulus in the world today and so many things, and that's another thing. You back up into civilization some time ago, and it wasn't that long ago
No,
that there really wasn't that much to do. There wasn't
true.
all this to consume, you know. Hell, if you had a nice horse, you had something pretty good.
That's right.
And maybe they probably did covet one. They coveted one another's horses and wanted a better one. So I mean, we've been doing that forever, but you didn't have this slice and this. I think that, I don't know, it's like the smorgasbord of life has caused this unbelievable amount of options out there for various things, careers. I mean,
Hmm.
golly, there's not 50 years ago, there wasn't near the careers, maybe even
Right.
less than that, 30,
Right.
25 years ago, not near the options that we have today. And I think it's a little overwhelming for us. We're not built for that much.
Right. Right.
Uh,
There's ton of information, and growing up again in the 80s, we had three. There was ABC, CBS, NBC, right? And you had your nightly news for 30 minutes, and that's all you got. And on the one
and
hand,
at night, those rainbow colors come up and it went to
yeah,
fuzz, and there was nothing to watch all night long.
nothing else to watch, and you're just hearing it. That's talk about programming, right? On the other hand, now we got, remember that Bruce Springsteen song, like 57 channels and nothing on, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when 57 channels, that was a lot back then. Now there's hundreds. And so
It's endless. It's
it's
infinite.
endless. And on the one hand, it's good because everyone's got a voice, and you've got all these different, you got podcasts like this, you got everyone kind of going into these niche areas, which is nice, and all these different clubs and tribes and so on. But it's overwhelming. There's just so much out there. But
Yeah.
it's kind of incumbent on each of us, though, I think, to have that again, going back to perspective, like, what is it I'm good at? What is it I enjoy? When it comes to overwhelm, if I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm not pointing the finger at myself, but I am saying, okay, well, I got to be accountable to find a way to regulate. And that may just be to turn it off, then maybe to walk into the room. I mean, usually for me, I go for a run with my dog or go for a hike or something, and I'm better. I'm better 45 minutes later, right? And so it's just incumbent upon all of us to find that, because all of this information is now just regular. I mean, we're not, unless we lose electricity and they're turning the buttons off on everything. This is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I got a place out in the country. Real fortunate. We've got a little acreage out in the Hoosier National Forestry, and there's no cell service at the cabin
Yeah.
and stuff, And I love to go out there and escape around. Matter of fact, I've got 30 something guys coming this weekend, Friday. We're leaving here about 10 in the morning and go do this will be my 11th men's retreat, recovery
Wow.
men's retreat. And we go out there and cook meat over the fire. And we do
That's
recovery work. We
fantastic.
have meetings and we swim and fish in the pond and just fellowship together.
Yeah.
And it comes from guys that are 1 month sober to like my sponsor who's 41 and a pretty good swath in between. And
Yeah.
where I'm getting at is that I need that. I feel like my dad was sick, for a little while here. My 87-year-old father lives with me. He had a compressed disc on his neck, and it made it where he was hardly able to use his arms and his hands and stuff for a while till we got that disc replacement surgery done. He's 87. He's doing wonderful now. But that time, and I felt that in me because I couldn't leave him. I couldn't disappear down to the cabin for the weekend, and it disrupted me,
Yeah.
because I know I need that unplugging on some semi-regular basis of going down there and sitting in the woods and just hanging out on the front porch with a cup of coffee with my feet up on the rails and
That's it.
nothing to do that I don't want to do. And
But what you said, nothing to do. I mean, I'm finding I drink my coffee in the morning early, and I'll just kind of stare out, and I'm bored, but it's good bored. I got nothing to do, and I'm observing my thoughts, and sometimes I go down some rabbit holes, and then I just pull back up and breathe,
yeah.
and nothing too woo woo. Just
I
me
have
and a
a
couple.
meditation practice, and you can call it what, I know some people do that, but that sounds like what I'm hearing
Yeah.
from you. I mean, we put too much power in that. Sit still for a little bit
Sit
and
still.
just sit in stillness.
Sit still.
I count my naps as meditation. I like to take a nap,
I love it.
and it's the same thing. It's some stillness in my day because we
Yeah.
find ourselves going 100 mile an hour all day long if we're not careful.
Exactly.
It's this, it's that. It's like
Exactly.
one of my old recovery heroes was named Bob Earl, and he said, "Busyness is my drug of choice in recovery."
Yeah.
As long as I
Yeah.
stay busy, and I do. I still suffer from that to some extent. I got a lot of good stuff going on in my life, and I want to like take advantage of all of it. But sometimes I go, whoa. And sometimes the universe will put the brakes on you too. You
Yeah.
don't take your own brakes, man. You'll have a hurt back, or you get sick, or you get,
It's
it's okay.
saying
You're going to
slow down.
stop for a little bit, Dan. You're not taking a break on your own. Well,
Yeah.
I'll give you a break.
You talk about the busyness, and that's great to be distracted and be doing things. It's fun. I will say that it's to be quiet and calm and joyful and peaceful. Those are all nice things to say. It's pretty boring though, right? Meditating, which I do, but it can be boring. And in our world, and I'm saying that kind of tongue in cheek, but to be distracted by the world, by notifications, by staying busy. I mean, I am a sucker for my to-do list. I will add it and I'll get it done, and I love crossing it off.
Me too.
So I just kind of straddle that. Like when I'm really being busy, I'm thinking it. I got to get stuff done. I'm focused. And what I try to do again though is I try to just observe myself as I'm doing it. Okay, I'm in busy mode. I'm focused. I got my tongue sticking out. I'm typing. I'm doing whatever. And then, but also just realizing that. Sorry. Also just realizing that. Uh, there's that other side. There's that other side of stillness, and that you don't need to be busy all the time. My identity is not tied to being busy. I mean, sometimes I look around and I feel a little uncomfortable if I don't have anything to do,
Yeah, yeah.
because I've tied my identity, work, and so on to getting stuff done. And if I don't have anything to do, it's sometimes not a joyful thing. It should be, but it makes me feel a little uncomfortable because, well, wait a minute, what am I going to do now? And so that's what I've been working on a lot, is just, you got nothing to do now. Enjoy it. And as opposed to feeling nervous that I'm missing something. So
Yeah. Well, I make a habit, and it's a 12-step recovery, suggestion is that I make sure that I get some of that in the morning
yeah,
and most nights. I
yeah,
think, but the mornings are like a no a deal breaker. That's a non-negotiable. In the morning, I'm gonna have my coffee. I'm gonna sit quietly for a little bit.
yeah,
I'm not gonna look at my screen. If I do have something, sometimes I put some audio on. I'll do like guided meditations because it's
yeah,
kind of the both thing. It's a little bit of busyness. So it'll occupy a
totally.
little bit at the same time, but then also allow me to kind of focus in on what's going on there and watch my breath and have that stillness every day. And as long as I do that every morning, it seems that, I have this other energy that I can carry on through the day, and I don't seem to burn
Hmm.
out. And I don't, I lay my head down at night. I heard somebody say, we get 100 gigabytes of energy every day or whatever it is. We get this amount of
Right.
energy every day to
Yeah.
use. And I get to choose where to use it. Because this negative energy and this other bad juju kind of stuff doesn't get as good a mileage. It's like stuff I want to do and stuff I
Right.
enjoy. Stuff I enjoy gets a lot of gas mileage. So at the end of the day, if I've been doing stuff I enjoy, I still got some in the tank when I lay
Yeah.
my head down and I'm good. But if
Yeah.
I've burned it up and something's happened today and whatever, when I get to the end of the day, if my tank is empty, man, I'm exhausted when I lay
Yeah.
my head down, and
Yeah.
it's not a good thing.
And to show you how crazy it is in this matrix, as I've gotten older and had kids and dealt with things, I sort of opened my mind up to this perspective and kind of new way of thinking and spirituality and all of that, which is great. But then I get caught in the trap of, well, if this is all just a matrix and I got to step back and observe myself, and you'll even hear some people say it's an illusion, it's a dream, all of that, then you get nihilistic and you say, well, what does it matter anyway? Like, why should I pay my bills? Why should I get life insurance? Why should I even do this if it doesn't matter? So then I'm giving myself a hard time, and this great spirituality or journey I'm on now is causing me heartburn because the world doesn't matter, or I'm not being as spiritual as the next guy. And so where I've just come to is realize, like, this is the human experiment. This is a classroom. It's not a prison, it's a classroom, as someone said. What can I learn from this? And really, being a human, for all of its warts and for all of the fact I'm stuck in busyness or whatever, or whatever the case may be, these are my steps to wherever I go next, whether it's coming again in another body, whether it's going to the white light and getting free of all this, whatever it is. I've just kind of accepted that this is it, and I'm gonna try and be helpful and be of service and have a good perspective and be positive, not rainbows and unicorn positive, because that's kind of
Some
forced,
days are
but
like that.
some days are. Yeah, yeah, I shouldn't even say
I
it's
take them
forced.
when I get them.
If I got rainbow, you're right. Like, what am I giving myself a hard time for? If I got rainbows
Yeah.
and unicorns, all the power to me, right?
Yeah, but it
Um,
wouldn't. You can't have it all the time because it wouldn't be so special when you do.
yeah, that's
And
true.
I just had one. There's these AA speakers there on the internet, and I've listened to them. Recovery Audio helped me reprogram.
Yeah.
back because I had music and football and baseball and all this stuff I had tied to my using. It's like, how do
Yeah.
you watch a football game without drinking a beer? It's like
Right.
impossible, but I had to because I was looking at a prison sentence, and that's when I had that ankle bracelet. And if I'd have messed that up, that's where I was going. And I was real serious about not going to prison.
Yep.
And so I was eating up at all day long in my ears, man, recovery audio. And I was listening to this one gentleman way back then, and I've listened to him all my life. And because of this podcast, I actually got in touch with him. He's been on my podcast a couple of times,
Mm,
like a hero kind of thing.
I love it.
Some people speak in your frequency and you hear them, right?
Yeah.
Where other people can speak all day long and you're just not even hearing them, like,
Yeah.
sounds like Charlie Brown's teachers.
Yeah.
And this guy I could hear, and he invited me to come down to his house in Nashville Monday, and I went down and spent the day with him face to face, and he did some workshop work with me, and he's just a
Wow.
solid dude. He just wrote a new book. He's wrote a few books. When you said that, he said, "Life is a school, and love is the lesson."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's really big on that.
Yeah.
And I found, I've been changed as a result of meeting him and seeing how he operates and how he has this tolerance and love for people and can just like no matter what kind of goofiness somebody's going on, he can love them and be and that and I see that's a very attractive thing for me.
Yeah.
To drop the judgmental stuff and just be of service to whether if you want to think about this way he puts it, it's God's other kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's all. I know when you drill inside, I mean, if you're like me, there's
Yeah.
a piece of me that's still that little 12-year-old boy that wants
Yeah.
to be picked on the side of the kickball team and don't
That's
leave me
right.
on the sidelines, man. And
Completely.
it's still in there.
Yeah.
So and I do. Another piece of that is I don't want to erase that childlike nature either.
Right.
I want to hang on to a piece of that. And one
Yeah.
way I do that is things like this weekend with these men
Yeah.
that's coming. I got a community of men that are all like-minded,
That's
and we
right.
support each other at levels that I don't see a lot of places.
Mm-mm.
And that's the kind of thing that keeps me out of that matrix kind of nihilism, what's it's all worth kind of thing.
That's
Because I'm
right.
watching these other guys grow too, and getting better jobs. And I'm watching one thing I love. I sponsor a lot of men that have little kids, and I'm watching the way they're raising their children. And I'm like, yeah, because that's a piece of this.
It's huge.
It was good that this dude at 45 years old got air quotes fixed, right?
Yeah.
That's good. But how do we
Yeah.
not break them
Yeah.
when they're little?
Yeah.
And I get to watch these guys allow their kids have their, I always say the world's stepped on my spirit when I was a little
Yeah.
kid. Some things happened
Yeah.
to me that shouldn't have happened to a little kid, and I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And I carried that stuff into adulthood, and I'm watching these guys raise these children and not stepping on their spirits and allowing them to be little kids and allow them to be fun, and their spirits are just so bright you want to be around these people's kids. There's been other people I don't want to be around their kids. These guys I do. And so
Exactly.
that what are you saying? I was thinking about that I've yet to, at least in recovery, fall into that nihilism thing that I go, what's it all worth?
Mm-hmm.
Piece of it's this day at a time living thing we do, like you said, I can't be thinking this is another ancient spiritual teaching. I can't live in the past.
Right.
Nothing good out there back there for me. And I
Right.
can't jump in the future, although there's some funny stuff because we're still supposed to save for retirement. We're still, syndicates, you can't just totally erase that, not go with the future concept. But I spend the majority of my gigabytes I get every day today. And that keeps
Yeah.
me focused, and that keeps me out of that past and out of the future. If I just continue to focus on, okay, Dan, what's next? What are we doing today? I get
That's
up in
it.
the morning and look at my calendar and say, okay, what am I doing today? And that's what
And
I'll focus on. And tomorrow can wait till tomorrow.
and even if you are thinking of the past, one way to realize it is I'm in the present right now. I'm in the now. I'm in the now. I'm in the now. And I've got these images, these memories of something that happened. Now we live in a linear world, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So just let's take that matrix of this linear world we're in that happened back then. But I'm in the moment thinking about something back then. And that helps me. It seems like it's semantics, but that really helps me not fall into the living in the past. I just say I'm in the moment right now. And I'm a human. Part of what I do is I got these brain synapses that have this weird invisible thing called a memory. and I'm just having that memory. Because you can't stop a memory. You can't stop your thoughts. I mean, you
Nope.
smell something and you have a memory from sixth grade, like it's there. What are you going to do, right? But I always try to stay in the now, because if I don't stay in the now, all of a sudden now I'm going back to sixth grade and I'm feeling nostalgia, or I'm feeling pain, or whatever. And you may do that, but then you want to pull yourself back. But what I do,
Meditation is a piece of
that's right.
that in a microcosm kind of thing. If I sit there and I go, my mind floats off, and I say, nope, back to here.
That's right.
Mind floats off, back to here. And then that practice every day helps me do that throughout my day. I'm going, no, back here.
That's it.
No, back here. And
Yeah.
we do stuff in 12 steps. And I don't know, I know there are modalities in this that do these things, but we go back and process that stuff. We make an inventory of our lives, and we go back and look at that. And we process it in a healthy manner.
Hmm.
The way I say about it is that stuff doesn't carry weight. It's not heavy anymore. It used
Right.
to once be heavy.
Yeah.
And actually, in 12-step recovery, the best thing, the most valuable tool of that dirty past, or that whatever happened back then, is that when I get to bring it forward to you, because you went through it too.
Yeah.
And I can say, man, I've been there, brother.
Yeah.
That's what happened to
Yeah.
me.
Exactly.
And work through it. So
Yeah.
we in the big book, it says something about our most valuable asset is our past, when we can bring it forward to help somebody else get over whatever they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's powerful. Very
Can't
powerful.
forget it, because then you don't have it as a tool.
Yeah.
And you can't, you can't. But you just try to stay here. The power now. How many books are written about that?
Yeah.
I was thinking
And
the
I,
other day about, like, how many books are there?
yeah.
Books. Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you imagine how many
How many
books there
titles?
actually are?
Think of all the titles.
I
And
Googled it, and it said something like, they think there's somewhere around 3 million different books, and that don't seem like enough. But if you think about 3 million books and they're piled up in a pile,
that's a lot.
that's a lot.
Is that what they said? 3 million?
That's
Yeah.
what Google said.
My first thought was that's not that much, but yeah, 3
That same thing
million.
here.
That'd be a big size. That'd be a big pile. Huh.
Yeah, you think about, I got 100 books sitting there on a shelf.
Yeah.
Take that times, to however many times it takes to get to 3 million. That's a lot of stuff. It's interesting. Have you wrote anything?
Do I what?
Do you write anything?
So I write, yeah. So Leave All Behind. I wrote a blog. That's how it started. So I would
Okay.
write. I would write weekly.
You don't anymore?
Don't have a book. Got some book ideas now for this new venture I'm doing. That I'm thinking about around work and around feeling unstuck and so on. But you run into the, oh well, who would read it?
Hard to do.
It's hard to do, and who am I to be an author and all that, right? So I'm running into the same issues that I think everyone does.
Yep, my sponsor writes.
Yeah.
And he wrote a big book on the 12 steps. We call it 12 Steps Spiritual Recovery. And it kind of overwhelmed a lot of people when we started this, because it was too much,
Yeah.
and it was overwhelming to people, but he did not count. He just wrote.
Wrote.
He's not counting pages. He's not
Yeah.
seeing how big it is. He's putting his thoughts on paper, man. And when
Yeah.
he run out of thoughts, and when he tuned it up and you had it. And so he's actually editing it down into a more manageable size at the moment. But my point there is that I am very close with a man that I see the struggle and the dedication that he has to have, because he's also got a novel going at the same
Sure.
time, and he's trying to balance this stuff. And I hear people all the time go, I think I'm gonna write a book. Yeah, I bet you
Yeah.
are. Let's see. That guy that I was with, Scott Lee, that I was with Monday, he's wrote a number of books, and I'm like, wow, because I really,
I see this all the time with people that I work with, but ideas are great, passion's great, ambition, all that we've talked about, but then it comes down to action. You really, one foot in front of the other, put your behind in a seat with a laptop, start clicking or start talking into your phone and just get your ideas out. But it's all about action. And a lot of people don't want to act because they're tired, because they got TV to watch, but also there's a lot of fear. Like, if I write this story, is it going to offend someone? Is someone going to say something? So there's all these blockers and fears and obstacles that folks have.
have that imposter thing that you said.
Yeah.
Who am I to do this?
Yeah.
It's in everybody, I think, or
Yeah.
Most of us. I know there's anomalies everywhere,
but it's action. It's I respect the doers, as they say. I respect the people that really get out there and and do something and make it. And I think that comes to where it's not just smarts and talent. It's the folks who really just stick with it and believe in it, and again put the proverbial one foot in front of the other. And so this is what I've said for anyone who feels stuck in their job or feels like they can't do it, or it's not me, or yeah, someone else could leave a job and do these transferable skills but not me. That's not true. It doesn't take talent and smarts and genius or anything along those lines. It literally takes obviously thinking, strategizing, getting an idea, getting a vision, goalpost where you want to go. But then it's about action and just trying stuff. And some of that stuff will fail and you get knocked down, but it's really just about action. And look at the 12 steps. I mean,
It's a program of action.
It's a program of action.
About it.
You got to do it.
Yep,
it's all about doing.
You can read that book. You can think about that book. You can write that book. There's recovery places that make people write it by hand. I mean, the dumbest thing in the world. It's like, that is not helping them. Do the work that it calls for. Take those actions that it calls for, and that will help.
And for me, I've had a higher sugar content. I'm not diabetes yet, but pre-diabetes, and we caught it. And so I gotta do action now. So in 10 years, I'm not suffering. But I got a sweet tooth. I love chocolate chip cookies and carbs and potato chips and stuff. And sourdough bread, San Francisco sourdough bread. I mean, that's what I grew up on. Right. And so I definitely cheat here or there. I mean, if someone's having a,
I think you need to.
You need to, right? A French toast or chocolate chip cookie, but I'm doing a
lifestyle where you just deprive yourself. That's crazy.
No, it's crazy. But I've had to act. I've had to cut out a lot. I've had to eat other things. Like I'm going to have that salad and I'm going to have a steak, but there's no potatoes with it because there's too many carbs and I got to lower my starches or got to eat a different one, And so you really got to act.
When we got on here, I was plugging my food today in my carb manager thing.
Yeah, okay,
watch it. And I don't really have any problems. I'm just trying to take better care of myself. Right. Dad's ancestors, he's 87, I'm 55. There's a real good chance I'm gonna get to live a long time if I take care of myself.
Right.
And so
healthy life.
I try to do that. And like I said, I'm just trying, because if you don't count it, you don't know what you're doing. If you don't keep track of it, you have no idea what you're eating.
As they say, if you're not measuring it, you can't manage it.
You're not weighing it. Yeah, you can't. You got to know, about servings and everything. And it's so cool because you can scan barcodes of stuff you eat, and even at the grocery store, beep, put that back, and have the wherewithal to do that.
And I was wearing one of those glucose meters on my arm, and I got the app on the phone, and I ate something, and it spiked, and I said, "Oh, I didn't know that would do it to me," but now I got information. I'm like, I got to avoid that food because that spiked my glucose.
Yep, that's a great thing, man. I've got a cousin that's really a healthy person, and she's taught me a lot and helped me with that stuff. And she talks about the same thing, wearing those.
You know what though? It stressed me out at first, though. I hated it. I wanted to rip it off because I'm sitting there going, "Stop telling me this is bad for me. Stop." So my perspective, to go back to that point, was anger at this thing. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, I just wanted some orange juice. You're telling me, like, yeah, we get angry at it. And now I've kind of with this little doohickey thing, but I've evolved with it. Like, okay, I'm going to change my perspective about the information this sensor is giving me, and not give it a hard time and not woe is me, but rather view it as helping me, or view it as I'm just cheating right now and I know it, and I'm just going to enjoy this cookie and enjoy the birthday cake, and that's what it is. That's
what we're doing right now.
We're doing.
That's it too. Yeah, because there's never been any value of beating yourself over the head. That's the thing in recovery. These people come in here and they think they've been bad, and they're almost like they should be punished, and they call themselves F-ups. I'm just a F-up, You are not. You're not, man. You're really not. You got disease. You got something that's outside your control. This is not your fault, man. This is not your fault.
What's sin, guilt, fear?
And sitting there, boom, 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 boom. I'm bad. It's not bad. We're not bad people trying to get good. We're sick people trying to get well.
Yeah. And it's sin, guilt, fear, right? Like I'm effed up because I did something. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I did something wrong, right? I'm wrong. Maybe I was just born in original sin, but I did something wrong. So therefore, I'm going to feel guilt now. I'm effed up. And then I'm looking in the future, and boy, the future is going to be bad, right? And that's that cycle that just continues on and on. So Some
And then funny
just
that negative bias, how it's just so tough to get over that, you know, and
yeah,
then you're stuck in these different things that's in the human condition, like that glucose monitor telling you, like you're instantly your gut reaction is to consider it bad, you know. And most things that we change look like that. When we make changes in our lives, it's a scary kind of thing, no matter what. And I think that's some of that evolutionary biology kind of stuff that makes us go, oh no, that's not good. I want to be in homeostasis. I want to
right.
stay right where I'm at. You know, that's where we
Yeah,
really all want to be. Problem is, right here usually ain't working out for us. We gotta
exactly.
take some action to get out of it.
And when I'm measuring all this stuff, whether it's a glucose monitor or money, stock market, or whatever, teachings or so on, then you take a step back and I say, well, this all doesn't matter because it's all an illusion, a matrix, a dream, or so on. And so for me, that I've been reconciling that, but what that does then is that in a positive way helps me reduce that anxiety. So if I'm looking at a spike on my glucose, it's like, hold on, this is the human environment, this is the school, this is the lesson. What do we learn from this? Let's not go down this route as we're in a prison or a living hell or something. If this is a school, a classroom, like your sponsor was saying, what am I going to learn from this?
Yeah.
And I'm learning love. And so what is love? Right? There's love or fear. Those are really the two emotions. So what is love? Well,
And they
obviously
have trouble
romantic.
coexisting.
What are you saying?
Love and fear is tough to coexist.
Right. Yeah. And some people would say it's not love. Love is just love. Like there is no two emotions. Like if you have love, there is no fear, right? But we live in a world of duality, so we need that comparison. But love is acceptance. Love is courage. Love isn't just romantic love or platonic love. It's acceptance, it's courage, it's surrender. Those are all types of emotions and actions that can fall under love. So when I have those moments, I say, all right, I just got some bad news, but what am I going to learn from this? How am I going to view this from love? I'm going to accept it, or I'm just going to run with it, or I'm not going to worry about it now. Or you know what? I'm going to act on it. I'm going to call my doctor right now, and I'm just going to get on it and not procrastinate, right? So a lot of ways that you can do it that come from love. So
Yeah, yeah. That guy the other day, that Scott that I went to his visit, he talks about mistakes. He says it's my job to make mistakes. I don't worry about making mistakes. Actually, I look forward to the next mistake because the next mistake is the next lesson that I get to learn.
it's right.
Because you never learn anything from doing things right. You learn from doing things when you got to bump your head up against it, or you do it wrong and have to figure out that way around it, and then you grow out of those opportunities.
And I love that you brought that up because one thing that my wife and I live by is, do we want to be happy or do we want to be right?
Right.
And most people in the world want to be right. And so
Yeah.
we're going to stick with our guns and we don't want to fail because that you're wrong. You're not right. You did something not right. But the happiness comes from when you do fail and you do learn from that experience, like you were saying, maybe an hour later, a minute later, maybe a year later, but you've got that reflection on it and you can laugh about it and say, whoa, did I learn a lot? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, and he goes in, we have tools, we do amends and stuff. And sometimes when I make a mistake, it's at your expense and I got to come and make it and own it with you. And then
yeah.
we grow closer together because I've owned my mistake, and more likely you're a compassionate human being that sees me doing that. And I make better connections with the people in my community as a result of
Yeah.
making those mistakes, and just this whole dynamic that really comes out of that ends up being positive in the long run if you handle it in a positive way.
And in the trenches there, I think if you make mistakes, you being the collective you, if we all make mistakes and you're accountable and you own it, in many ways that's a positive because that builds the connections. People see you as a human, you're fallible. Oh, you're not some perfect person on a pedestal. You're just like me. Second, you got the courage and you stand up and you own the mistake. So I see you as an honest person. I see you as responsible. And then that builds that trust in many ways. Messing up and then owning it is actually a positive. It's like when you build muscle and people weight lift, they rip apart the muscle and it heals, but it comes back together and becomes stronger.
Stronger.
So I've realized that some of the people that I'm the closest with in my lives are the ones I've had the biggest blowouts or problems or where I've messed up enough, but I've a lot, but I owned it and they saw that trust and that built that in the trenches.
You know, in 12-step recovery, step 9 is making amends, and we do work around that. We
Yeah.
don't just do this stuff. We have recipes and formulas and stuff for doing this stuff so that we can do it with power and with honesty and integrity, authenticity. And, you know, most of us have burned a lot of bridges in our past in places, and it's no fun to think about going back and making those amends and repairing this stuff. But we see time and time again these miracles as a result, like, you
Yeah.
know, I got a guy that crashed multiple trucks for this company. One of them was a train hit him while he was high on heroin, and and
Wow.
he embezzled a bunch of money off of company credit cards, and he just created an entire mess there, you know. And they finally, he was like, you got to go, brother, you know, and he just
Yeah.
couldn't get his stuff together. Well, you know, through the process, he goes back to that dude, the owner of that company, and made amends with him. And like 6 months later, this dude calls him up, offers him a director of training job, making more money than he's ever made, to come back. And now he's like, like in the executive board, you know, from crashing trains on heroin, making that amend, owning that stuff. It made a big enough impact on that man that he come brought him back. And now also this man is like their cornerstone people for when
Love
people are
it.
having substance abuse issues in the company. They come talk
Talk
to
about
my
trust.
come
Yeah.
come talk to my guy. So that's just, and I've got so
Great
many of those
example.
stories, man,
Great
of that,
example.
of patching it up and how that all works. You know, there's the universal laws out there, like, and if you kind of, you know how to use them,
Yeah.
they can, and you know, and again, none of that of what I just said was easy for that dude.
Mm-mm.
None of it.
No.
But
No.
it took action, and it took you know, for that integrity, authenticity, and going and owning your stuff. Most time when you mess up with people, that's really all they
Yeah.
want is you to own it. You know, so
Well,
yes, I did it. You know, because we're so, oh, it was an accident. But this is
no.
all this
Just
shucking and jiving around, and so, no,
the buck
I did
stops
this.
here. The buck
Yep.
stops here with me. And I heard that, you know, the flip side of a right, the ability to do something, is responsibility. So, you know, we have the right to free speech. We've got the right to bear arms. We got the right to whatever, have your own bedroom as a kid. You have a right to food on the table, whatever. Whether it's a constitutional right or whether it's a lowercase r right that we just have in society. But the flip side of that is responsibility. You know, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful with that right. You gotta use that free speech well, or you gotta protect that firearm. Or if okay, you want your own room, you gotta earn your own room, and you have to earn an allowance, and whatever it is in the family or the country or wherever. And so when I heard that teachings, that really opened up, because it's not just kind of free rights, free money. We're just handing out rights here and there. That you want to write, you want to be able to sit on the couch and watch football on Sundays. Great, have that right. But there's always a flip side to it. Something always has to give, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just understanding there's a responsibility that goes with it. So that's something that was great, and kind of ties in with what you're saying about the amends there, and the responsibilities that go with it. And many people don't want that responsibility. They don't want that self-empowerment, because that means you're accountable. You know, I mean, that's the beauty of it all when it comes to free will. Like, I am totally responsible on how I view the world and what my actions are. And that sounds empowering. It also sounds really scary, because wait a minute, you mean I can't blame anyone? You mean I can't, like you were saying, I can't point the finger at someone else for something? Whoa, I don't know if I want that, like, responsibility. And you know, it depends on your perspective there.
Bill Wilson, who wrote the book, he says, and that guy I visited Scott the other day, he said, best news in that book, it said, our problems are of our own making.
Yeah.
Because I really am the problem. And I think Taylor Swift wrote that. And I'm not a Taylor Swiftie, but I got a
Right.
buddy who talks about it all the time. And he does it mostly out of jest. That I think guess he's got a job that says, or a song that says, "I am the problem."
Yeah.
And you know, it's really not out there. Again, it's inside of here. And we've been taught all our lives that you can't change other people. You've heard that all your life, and it's
That's right.
true. You
Yes.
can't change other people. So therefore, if it really is them, you're screwed, because you can't
That's
do
right.
nothing about them.
Can't
But
do
I can
anything.
do something in here.
That's right.
I got some tools that I can do something here. And
That's right.
when I change this, all that changes too.
That's it.
She's nicer. Boss
That's
is
it.
better. You know, all this stuff gets better some weird way. You know, it's
The
cool.
problem is, if we don't want to say it's us, so I don't have to change, you have to change. And then the second thing also is going back to sin, guilt, and fear, to return to that. we project on the world bad stuff, that something's wrong. And so if we're going to go internal, like you said, and not view the world as wrong, then one, that goes against in many ways how we were raised, consciously and subconsciously, but also two, we got no one else to blame anymore. We can't be angry anymore. And so that's part of the problem, even for us who observe it. Like, being angry feels pretty good sometimes, maybe the first second of it or first few minutes, but like you get that anger out, that energy. There's an attraction to it. Now we always,
especially if I'm right.
Yeah, I'm right. And I'm gonna, so but you're right. It's all internal. And when you shift that internal viewpoint, it just works wonders. So
yeah, very cool. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We've been going an hour and 20 or something
yeah.
like that. That's what happens. I love doing this. I just have these conversations with people, and sometimes we get around to more technical tools and stuff, and sometimes we're more out there in the ether.
That was great. No, Dan, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Great to talk to you. You got a great energy about
so
you.
To find you, you said caseyberman.com. I'll put that in the show notes. Is that what you said?
Please do. caseyberman.com
and no spaces, no hyphens, just that.
CASEYBERMAN.com. And people can find me there, and happy to help.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
We can't have enough people out there trying to help, and I always say this, my listeners will be probably, tired of hearing this, but I don't watch TV at all. When I had that ankle bracelet, that cost me $100 a week, $100 a week. And I couldn't turn off the gas. I couldn't turn off the electric. I couldn't stop paying the car insurance or the car payment, the house, but I could turn off that $150 cable TV bill.
Right.
And I did. And
right.
I had detox from that. You come home with that remote control and there's nothing on TV,
Right.
Well, I'm gonna find something else to do, I guess. I couldn't leave. I had an ankle bracelet on. I wasn't like I was going anywhere. Although they let me take my kids to points A and B where they need to be, dance, scouts, blah, blah. And they let me go to recovery meetings. I go to recovery meetings 8 times a week.
Right.
And they let me go to work. So they allowed me to do things that was a benefit. But anyway, I turned it off, and it's one of the best things they ever do. But I see it now and again. And I also see people who are stuck in it. And it looks like the world is going to shit if you're watching that thing, at least from my perspective.
Yep.
That's what it looks like.
I agree.
And that's not true, because I keep on meeting I meet people like you all the time, and other people in my community that are forces for the good.
Yeah.
And I have to believe, and I do believe that the light will overcome the dark. And then that's just the way it's going with people like you and I out here carrying a message, trying to help other people. So thank you.
I agree.
For that.
I agree.
Thank you for being
Absolutely.
a force for the good.
Yep. Great.
All righty. I'm kind of just in time delivery most of the time, so this will come out Sunday. I try to do that.
All right.
Man, I was on a podcast once, and they told me to be out in about 6 months, and about broke my heart. Hell, I'd be sober in 6 months. This could be old news. So I don't know. As I've done this, I put new content out every Sunday morning, and
I love it.
And I try to keep it. And I'll do my best to keep it as it just.
Whatever works. No, honored to be here. Thank you.
People are releasing books, and they want this out now. Huh?
Yeah. No, I'm honored to be here. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Good deal. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day.
You too as well. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Always try to be just who they want.